I'm Paulina Leiser, producer of Focus Today. Thank you for watching this video, and make sure to check our other videos at theDove.us.
Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and as always, a delight, a hoot, and kind of an unexpected moment. We just don't know what's going to happen over the next few moments because we have with us our good friend, Bob Just. And you just don't know what he's going to say, but he's fun to have. And we are Skyping him live from New York City, and it's not even Saturday night.
Good morning. Good morning. No SNL here.
No SNL. Well, good. How you doing, bud? Good to see your smiling face.
I'm doing well. It's snowing here in New York. It looks like it's Christmas.
Wow.
Beautiful. Yeah, beautiful.
Well, a couple things. First of all, you got to go to the inauguration. How was it?
Yes, I did. It was fabulous, Perry, and I thank Congressman Walden and his office for getting me the ticket. It was very kind of them, and it was very last minute, and it was a lot of fun, and I was so glad to be there. I tell you, it was like a witness to history, and I only decided to go about 2 days before, at least decided to try to go, and then Congressman Walden made it happen. So it was really terrific.
You have a good
seat?
seat?
I have to say, yeah, he got me a green ticket up front. I mean, over to the left. But, in a sea of people, I felt very lucky. And I'll have to tell you, Perry, in the inauguration moment, there was the people around me, there was huge sigh of relief. I mean, it wasn't just cheering. It was people leaning in for the moment when he said, "So help me God," and boom, it was done. Yeah. And we were rid of the previous administration. It was a sigh of relief.
Well, what did you think of his speech? I mean, I don't think we've ever seen a pointed speech for an inaugural speech like he did when he had four, former presidents sitting behind him and a bunch of Republicans and Democrats. He just went after everybody.
Yeah, he scolded them. I mean, he basically did. I thought it was a very powerful speech. The people around me were thrilled. You couldn't tell, I'm told. I haven't watched it yet on the regular. I taped it, but I haven't watched it. But the people around me were thrilled, and I think that's the general reaction of people who are Trump supporters. He laid it down. He was the man that people voted for. He didn't suddenly turn into something squishy.
Well, we're seeing that today. We'll come to today's news, but also while you went back to Washington, D.C. for the March for Life. I saw a time lapse of the march coming up the street, and I was just so amazed by the amount of people that showed up for that. And then to have Vice President Mike Pence address the crowd, pretty historic moment.
Historic moment, and actually, I'm sure it occurred to other people, not just me, but I sat there thinking, gee, what took it so long to get a vice president there at the March for Life? I mean, it's been going on for 44 years. What was the? But thank you, Vice President Pence and President Trump. It was great to have him there.
Well, he did say that the president sent him there, which was an indication. And that day, President Trump did defund abortions through organizations overseas. So that was kind of a first, I guess, an indication that Planned Parenthood is now in the sights, so to speak, for defunding.
Very much so. There were a lot of defund Planned Parenthood signs there, as you can guess, Perry. I have to say, before we go on, it was very honorable, and of course he's an honorable man, of Vice President Pence to make it clear that he was there at the direction of the President of the United States. Right. Even though he wanted to be there. I mean, people who know Vice President Pence know he wanted to be there. But he was making sure people understood he was under the authority of the President, and he was representing the President there, not just himself.
All right, Bob, there is concern now that President Trump is using executive orders to unwind a lot of the so-called executive orders, I should say the unconstitutional executive orders of President Obama. But he's also using executive orders to do some of the things that he campaigned on that he would do. There is a concern. When will he subordinate to the three branches of government?
I think, first of all, the Democrats have been delaying his cabinet choices. It's right. unheard of what they're doing because they have no power to stop it. And they are simply slowing it down for political purposes. And this Yates, acting Attorney General Sally Yates, what she did, the grandstanding, the political grandstanding she did, knowing that Sessions was going to be voted on today. Okay, so it is an indication not only of how politicized the Attorney General's office was, the Department of Justice was, but also an indication of how they operate. Okay, they delayed Sessions' vote, right, for about a week.
Right.
And knowing that delay, she waited for her moment, and they took advantage of it. It's purely political. There isn't any credible person that I've heard on TV or constitutional expert that hasn't said, like Jonathan Turley, for example, was on Morning Joe this morning and said, look, Trump is absolutely right. You can disagree with whether he should have done it politically, but legally he's constitutionally solid on it, and she had no right to do it. And by the way, she used very weasel words, if you notice. In her statement, she said she is not convinced. In other words, she didn't come forward and say, this is against the law and I order none of the...
Right.
No, she said, I'm not convinced. Well, that's a weasel word. That means, no one can accuse her of saying that it's not lawful. She knows it's lawful. She knows it's lawful, and she did what she did purely for political reasons, and it gives you an idea of who the Democratic Party appointees are. And by the way, Perry, this extrapolates to the whole bureaucracy. If we think this is just in the Justice Department, forget it. There are political people who have a loyalty to a cause above and beyond, in their view, the American people, and they're in the CIA, they're everywhere. They're in the FBI. That's just the nature of the left.
In the end, she may be thanking Donald Trump because she's the first one that got "you're fired" from Donald Trump, and that could, in the long run, make her a lot of money as a celebrity.
Yeah. Well, of course, that's how the left works. She knew by doing that she was going to lose her job anyway the moment Sessions came in. So she took her moment to make herself, at least she hopes, a leftist star. Personally, I think there are enough people to say that what she did was silly. Yeah. And obviously political. I don't know how far it'll carry her fame, but we'll see.
All right. So, what do you think of the travel ban? And of course, you know what the left is doing, and you can explain that very well. But it has really caused quite the stir, obviously. And the only thing I could think of is that chaos that is now that the left has created out of this travel ban could possibly be overridden as early as tonight once the president announces the Supreme Court nominee and all the attention goes there. But in the meantime, it has really stirred up a lot of people. In fact, I wrote a statistic down this morning. 190 people were detained and 874 were let in. So what's the problem here?
Yeah, it was a minuscule amount of people that were a problem. I heard different numbers, but I'm not really sure of the number. But it's minuscule. Look, the thing is, we need to look at the bigger picture in this. The Democrats predictably are using a technique. They're first of all the core mission is to undermine the authority and the credibility, the authenticity of the President of the United States. And they claim the popular vote as part of the reason they do that, and which is, of course, nothing to do with the way our political system works. We're a republic. We're not a pure democracy, and our system works according to the Electoral College, as I know you guys have addressed many times. All right, so what they're doing is it's a technique, and the technique is they're going to be outraged at everything he does. Basically everything he does. And their minions, and that includes Hollywood, that includes Meryl Streep, that includes the people who spoke at the Screen Actors Guild event, I think it's Screen Actors Guild event last night, or the night before, that everything they can do, it's death of 1,000 cuts. So everything they can do to create a feeling that Donald Trump is not a legitimate president. And then other people have stated if they get control of Congress, I don't think they will, but if their goal is to get control of Congress, to create enough outrage to get control of Congress in 2018 and then impeach Trump. I mean, credible people have stated that as a goal. I think it's a little crazy, but the left is crazy. That we have to deal with that.
All right, so, but the actual ban itself, it's a 90-day ban. Did they execute it right, or should they have given those 7 countries a heads up before they actually do it?
No, I think they did it right because I think they had to surprise. They didn't want people to try to sneak in once it announced. And, you know, President Trump has made it very clear that he doesn't think it's wise strategy to give people a heads up about what he's going to do. And this is a signal of that. He is going to act, and within his authority, and including the reasons, not just his presidential authority, but the reasons he campaigned on, his promises to the people who voted for him. So this is Donald Trump. You know, in a sense, this is get used to it. But the left is going to take advantage of that you know, of course, they understand Trump's technique. They understand what he promised. They understand what he's going to do. So they're hair trigger to respond to everything he's promised, the way they did with the so-called ban, which really only is, you know, a moratorium of 3 months in order to improve the vetting process, which is something he promised the American people.
Right.
So, you know, they're making a mountain out of the molehill, to use an expression my father used to use, to make a mountain out of a molehill.
Yeah.
Bottom line is they will do that with every issue. And we'll see what happens with the Supreme Court, because that is a serious one tonight.
All right. Let me take a quick break here. We're talking to our good friend Bob Just. He's a political commentator. You can read a lot of his things at bobjust.com, and also look for his articles at WorldNet Daily and Whistleblower. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Focus Today, and as always, a delight to have with us our good friend Bob Just. We're Skyping him in live from New York City today, talking to him about a variety of things. And you can check out all of his articles at bobjust.com. Look for his writings at WorldNet Daily and Whistleblower, and he's just all around in touch, plugged in guy.
Yeah, and don't forget, Perry, DemocratsForAmerica.com.
You know, it's okay, DemocratsForAmerica.com.
Okay.
And I think it's cool that, that Congressman Walden got you a seat to the inauguration, but you had to sit on the left side.
No, actually, I was on the right side facing the podium. On the left side, if you're President Trump.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, there you go.
Not that he would notice.
Hey, let's come back to the Women's March the day after the inauguration. Boy, I was just blown away by the vulgarity, the exposure, the language, the hate, the anger. Can you tell me what this is all about?
Well, at core, I think that kind of anger that you're talking about is there are, you know, many women in this country, I would even say millions of women, who fear men. You could say hate, that's extreme, but for some of them it is hate. I mean, I told you a few years ago that my mother profoundly told me, about 5 years ago, that she hates men. And she was a very honest lady, and she had issues with her father, and she was a typical leftist before I, thank God, brought her to Christ. But that was to hear that from your own mother when she had 2 boys. It's a shocking thing, and it's hard for people to hear. The reason I bring up my mother is that when you talk about this politically, it's hard for a lot of people to hear. But it's true. There are millions of women in this country who genuinely fear men. And very often they're single women, not always, but and we know the single women tend to vote Democrat and married women tend to vote Republican. And I think part of the reason for that is married women come to the realization that men love them, and that men are trustworthy, and that men, you know, that men are not evil, which, you know, unfortunately, younger women can think if they have trouble in their dating years and whatever, you know. But I think that anger we have to take seriously. The corollary to that, Perry, is we have to remember that the left, Ronald Reagan, and I have an article here published by the Los Angeles Times when Reagan said it. Ronald Reagan talked about the Iron Triangle, and that is and how that influences American politics, because it creates an impression that all Americans believe one thing or another. And of course, I've written about that too. And the Iron Triangle is the special interest groups, the liberal politicians, and the liberal media. And the way they work is the special interest groups will have a demonstration. The media will cover the demonstration. Outrage, outrage at the airports, for example, with the so-called Muslim ban. And then come forward the politicians to weep or whatever, as Senator Schumer did. But then the politicians call for action. So it works like a triangle. And I would add the word emotional. So it's not just the iron triangle, it's the emotional iron triangle. It's a gearing up machine, and it builds this hysteria. And you watch television, you think, oh my gosh, everyone, oh my gosh, people hate Donald Trump, and you forget that that's not what the polls say. That's not what the votes said when it comes to the Electoral College. But if you watch television, you really are watching what I called in one of my articles before the election, Donald Trump versus my Democratic Party's fantasy politics. You're watching fantasy politics. It has nothing to do with reality. And that's what we experienced at the Women's March, although granted, there were real numbers turned out. And we have to remember, because of the unions, because of the special interest groups, and because Washington, D.C. is predominantly liberal, and all the counties around Washington, D.C. are predominantly liberal, it was easy for a lot of these women to just take a bus into the city or drive into the city. So that's what we were looking at, in my view.
It's interesting because I think in anybody that deals with any level of counseling, whether you're a full-blown psychologist, psychiatrist, whatever, you'll tell you that anger is an outward expression of a pain or a hurt. And so I saw a bunch of broken children there that were extremely angry.
Right.
And the other thing that I saw was the exposure of young people who were brought to that march that were so innocent. I have no idea what happened to their little hearts and minds as a result of that.
It's very sad what you're talking about. The language that was used, and we have to remember that these kind of people that have this kind of mentality control our colleges and universities.
Yeah.
They basically control the teachers' union, so they control our high schools. And there are many examples you hear on Fox News of teachers doing outrageous things, that to propagandize students. I tell you, the hope for this country right now, nothing new to any of us, but the hope for this country right now is Jesus Christ and the reality of the Christian movement, Christians who are willing to stand and represent Christ in their communities, reach out to the young. The hope for this country is for us to reach out to the young and bring them to Christ, because the left is bringing them to their secular, world order, which has nothing to do with the truth.
Okay, President Trump is expected to announce his Supreme Court nominee tonight. Most rumors are saying it's Hardiman. I don't know a whole lot about him other than I think he comes from the Third Circuit, and but he seems to be a constructionist. He's very much a constitutionalist. This is not going to be an easy battle through the Senate. My concern is, are there any people on that Judiciary Committee on the Republican side that could weaken?
I don't think on this issue, Perry. I think the danger is they're weakening on the issue of immigration, illegal immigration, the Muslim issue. There are people that I think will weaken on that. That's a real danger. But on the Supreme Court choice, the Republican Party held firm, to prevent Obama getting a choice in an election year. And the Democrats are being hypocritical about that, especially Senator Schumer, who called for, actually, I think he said that an appointment shouldn't be made within 2 years of an election. So hypocrisy is rampant in my party. Not that that's news to anyone listening, but anywhere watching. But I'm not so sure. By the way, I have to say that Hugh Hewitt, whom I respect very much in terms of he's a attorney and a talk show host and solid conservative Catholic, and he said that all three of those choices, the Gorsuch, the Hardiman, and Pryor, are solid choices, and we shouldn't be concerned about any one of them. I think I tend to prefer Pryor, but yeah, I have heard that Hardiman is at this point likely. Donald Trump's sister sits on the bench with him and knows him, and apparently is an admirer of his. But on the other hand, I think Trump likes to surprise us. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's not Hardiman. We'll see.
Do you think the Republicans, I mean, here's a perfect opportunity for them to use the nuclear option as the Democrats did against them. Do you think they'll do that on this nominee?
I think if they have to, they will. And I should say that there is a backstory to this. The Democrats will claim that they held the line and not apply the 51 vote. In other words, no filibustering. That they held back and did not apply that to the Supreme Court. The reality is that they indicated, first of all, that they would. There were many people that indicated they would. What they did is, in a sense, worse. They changed the Senate rules. They broke the Senate rule of the Senate has a rule of how to change Senate rules.
Right.
You know, obviously, if you're in any you're an expert on this. But you know, as former chairman of the Oregon Republican Party, you know it's not a casual thing to change rules.
No.
Because you change how the procedure operates,
right.
And they changed how the procedure operates on a 51 vote. And so, as Hugh Hewitt and others who are experts in this point out, the real change that happened is the ability to change the rules on a 51 vote, which means anything the Republicans do by way of changing the rules on a 51 vote is fair game. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I mean. Yes, I mean, I think the irony is what the Democrats did in breaking the rules to change the rules is now going to come back and haunt them.
Right, big time.
That's the irony of it. Well, I hope on this particular issue, whoever the nominee is, yeah, they have to be vetted and they'll go through the process, but get seated on the court quickly. But I was surprised on some of these other things. You're right. I think on this immigration thing and even on Obamacare, it looks like there's some softening on the repeal and replacement of Obamacare, and certainly on this immigration thing. When you guys got guys like Marco Rubio and John McCain out there on the Republican side pounding the president on these issues, that could sway some people.
Yeah, it could. I still think that Trump is going to look. The Democrats are breaking all the traditional rules of a honeymoon for a new president.
Right.
And outrageously so. I mean, a president of the United States is everybody's president, and they're refusing to allow this. I mean, I have a friend who just emailed me and says he's not my president. I said, you're undermining the whole political system if you say that. I disagreed vehemently with Barack Obama. I would never say he was not my president because our system works that way. But here's the thing. It's horrible that the Democrats are not giving Donald Trump a honeymoon. It's much worse than that. They're actually trying to undermine him. But there's no honeymoon at all, no honeymoon from the media, no moment where we can celebrate we have a new president and our system worked and we had a peaceful transition. But guess what? If the Republicans don't give him a honeymoon, there's going to be some real trouble for those candidates that don't give him a honeymoon. This is a guy who ran and won, and historic moment, and he deserves to lead in the way he thinks he should lead, and Republicans should pull behind him.
It's said that because the Democrats are not giving him the 100-day honeymoon grace period, that their criticism is he's provoked the criticism by his executive orders and all that. But beyond all of those arguments, because he's not given the courtesy of 100 days, it looks like he's going to have to use just about every bit of his political capital within 100 days to set the agenda. Otherwise, he could lose it because he does have the momentum of the country behind him.
Yeah, and the thing that's great, and we should mention this, is that because of the change of rules, because Trump can get the cabinet of his choice, and it's a very conservative cabinet, as I know you've talked about, the Democrats know they can't stop him. And so they're trying to, hurt him in other ways. But the point is, we're going to get a more conservative cabinet than I remember in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And it's a strong, good cabinet. And that means the bureaucracy is going to be run by good men and women who are conservative. So I'm very hopeful about what's going to happen. I think DeVos, all of them are going to get voted on, no matter what the left says. We're going to get DeVos as Secretary of Education, and she's going to do wonders on the issue of school choice and cleaning house in the Department of Education, in my view. So, and she's just one example. Sessions is another, and there are many.
I know you miss Oregon terribly, I can tell by the smile on your face, but I want you to know that the 2 Oregon senators and 3 Oregon congressmen are vehemently opposing Betsy DeVos. I wonder why.
I wonder why. That part of Oregon I don't miss. The liberal politics of Salem and Portland and Eugene, I do not miss that. But you and I both have friends that are in Salem and fighting the good fight, and I honor them, people like Carl Wilson and many others. Yeah. So thank goodness for those guys who are fighting the good fight. Maybe we'll be able to get the state back.
Have you been by Trump Towers lately there in the city?
No, I haven't. Actually, I'm sorry. I went there a few times at night, and I never went during the day. And I should, just to kind of hang and soak in the atmosphere for a few hours, see all the, the dignitaries coming in. But I did that at night, and it's quite glamorous. I mean, it's quite amazing, actually. It's all the cameras and everything.
I would imagine the security is unbelievable now.
Yeah, truly. Yeah. And, people are talking about that's going to be, Trump White House North. And, it's quite something, to have this guy who was a New York celebrity and a national celebrity as a businessman, not just a celebrity, but as someone who achieved great things in business and was known for his deal making. And so we're starting to witness that. Perry, I'm sure you're as excited as I am with all the trouble that's going on and all the pain and all the constant fomenting of anger by the left. I think they're going to expose themselves for the Marxists that they are, for the anti-American Marxist-Leninists that they basically are. I'm talking about the leadership of my party. I'm not talking about the rank and file, which many of whom voted for Trump, in the northern Midwest states.
You're amazing.
You're amazing. It's an amazing. We're living an amazing moment. Yeah. Any young people listening now, you're very lucky to be alive now. This is a moment. I told you about meeting with Ben Carson, about a year before he announced running for president, because he's one of our national advisors for concerned families. And we both agreed that we were on the edge of a political revival, and right behind that might be a spiritual revival, because the truth is coming out and people are hungering for love, and they look at all the hate and these mobs and the anger and all of this, and they think, this is not who America is. This is not what we are as a country. We're a country about truth and justice and freedom. So and love has got to be right at the center of that, right?
Amen to that. All right, thank you, Bob. BobJust.com. What is it? Democrats for what? America.com? DemocratsForAmerica.com. And I'll be gearing up again now that the inauguration's passed to write. But a lot of my articles that were written right before the election are still up there. So. Okay. And WorldNet Daily and Whistleblower. You'll see them all over the place. Good to see you, buddy. Hang in there.
Likewise, Perry. God bless you.
All right, Bob Just. We'll be right back.